Good morning and welcome to the CLPD accredited webinar. Our topic today will be on FinTech. And my name is Jean Visser. I am a legal assistant here at Fichte and Co. And I will be hosting this session. As we all know, FinTech is a huge market disruptor and a rapidly growing industry. As such, we've had many inquiries from our clients regarding the legal implications of this. And so we thought this would be a good opportunity to just hold this webinar to answer some of these questions and give you some insight into the key topics. So we have allocated an hour for this presentation, and it will be split into two segments. The first half will be a presentation conducted by our senior associate here on the corporate and commercial team, and she will be covering some key topics, and these include the transition to a cashless society, overview of the legal framework, key legal trends, as well as an overview of UAE incubators and equity investments. And so without further delay, I will give the floor to my colleague, Dr. Laura Voda, to begin her presentation.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining. Thank you, Jan, for the warm introduction. In order for us as lawyers to define the concept of FinTech or FinTech law, we would need to look into the union of two major industries, the financial services and the IT, information technology. Therefore, for us as lawyers, the domain is a hybrid, is a sui generis in nature, as we call it, and it needs to encompass legal elements from both these industries. On top of that, there's a huge comprehensive regulatory umbrella that needs to be, I would say, followed in order to be able to activate in this domain. And further on, in discussing FinTech, we can continue with this taxonomy for a number of other domains or subdomains. We discuss about crypto assets, cryptocurrencies, coin offerings, financial services, IT solutions, lending, crowdfunding, etc. Obviously, in the colloquial sense of speaking, people tend to understand by FinTech only cryptocurrency and at some point blockchain, which is not the case. The domain is actually much wider than this, and in terms of areas of law, obviously we discuss about taxation, corporate, intellectual property, licensing, royalties, etc. But why are we moving into a cashless society? The FinTech solutions are cheaper, approachable for the end user. And when we're discussing about FinTech, we are discussing about a relatively low number of historical years. The FinTech industry has a newer formation, a newer origin. And because of this, we would understand, or we would observe as a fact, that different markets entail different regulation. We would move to the next slide in order to have a clear or a brief overview of the legal framework in UAE. As you know, for the traditional spectrum of financial services, in here we have three main regulators. We have the SCA, the Commodities Authority for the mainland UAE, and the relevant authorities in DIFC and ADGM. But then all in all, it depends on what exactly we are discussing about, because we've seen that in UAE, as lawyers, we've been approached to advise on a high number of contracts related to either artificial intelligence development, either to application programming interfaces, offerings, coin offerings, funding, etc. So from our first interim conclusion is that regulation-wise, indeed, we have the regulation that pertains to financial services per se, but a lot of sectorial regulation legislation that needs to be considered. So all in all, yeah, the domain is comprehensive in the sense that we look into the financial regulation, we look into the corporate regulation, yeah. We develop corporate structures, appropriate investment structures for FinTech services, but at the same time, we would need to look into data regulation, Obviously, there are new developments, especially in DIFC now in 2020. We would not need to look into intellectual property. We would need to look into how to capitalize these assets. There's a lot of corporate spectrum of regulation applicable. I would say something which is very fashionable these days, the economic substance regulations, and so on and so forth.